It's LavonThaOne AkA Dj Himalaya. I'm here to give you the recap of the Angie Martinez Birdman interview, which is an interview I've been anticipating. Whether y'all been anticipating it or not sure, but we're going to find out after this video. But it's definitely an interview I've been anticipating because, though, there's a lot of controversy going on. You know, you got the Young Thug and the Lil Wayne situation, and then Lil Wayne wanting to leave Cash Money, which is something I thought I'd never see in my lifetime. You know, because, you know, he's always considered that his son. You know, and the Rich Gang situation and, you know, the Lil Wayne's tour bus shot up. You know, she went through all of it during this interview. You know what I mean? So we definitely gonna get into the recap of how I felt about it. Shout out to Angie Martinez, because that's always been my girl. Like, you know, she goes in, those hoes barred. She's definitely one of those smart women that you ain't just finna slick talk her and manipulate her. Nah, you know, she wasn't having none of it. There was a couple parts. She really is an OG, because there was a couple parts of the interview where she straight up told Birdman, I don't feel like you being honest with me, and I feel like you lying to me. And there's probably grown men who wouldn't tell Birdman that. I would, but there's probably ain't too many of them that probably would tell him that, not to his face. And, you know, he couldn't do nothing but just, you know, try to re-answer the question. But we're going to get off into the recap. So she wasted no time. She goes in and she asks him about Lil Wayne wanting to leave Cash Money. I'm just going to make what I'm doing with this review, for those of y'all who haven't watched the Angie Martinez Birdman interview, Birdman, you know, he's one of them Southern OG slick talking dudes. Fortunately for me, I grew up and still live around niggas like him all my life. And I used to be one of those niggas. I'll slick talk somebody in a heartbeat and talk a circle around them and make them forget what they asked me to begin with and leave them feeling like they got an answer. But I try not to be that person no more, because I like people just to be straightforward with me, and I try to be straightforward with everybody else. But she went in, she asked him about Lil Wayne wanted to leave Cash Money, and he just basically said he gonna support Wayne no matter what his decision. I do feel like there was a lot of truth to that. I really do feel that Birdman feels that Wayne is his son, because he's not his biological father, but I really do feel that he, you know, really has that love and bond with Wayne. It's just, you know, the business gets crazy. You know, I'm born and raised in Texas, still live in Texas, and I know quite a few people that I've gotten to sit down and had the privilege of talking to, of people who actually know our Texas artists like Bun B and Pimp C and Lil Flip and Trader Truth and Zero and Paw Wow and Lil Kiki. And, you know, they've talked to me about the business before and how it is, and it gets real complicated. We ain't even got enough time to put it all into this interview that I'm doing right here. This video, that I'm doing. So it's definitely always more than what you see in the tabloids and, you know, on Facebook and on Twitter. It's usually definitely more than what we're perceiving it as. And then we're going to go ahead. I'm going to try to go fast and just, you know, because the interview itself was like an hour and some odd minutes long. And so I'm just going to try to get to the points. So I'm not going to waste too much time just beating around the bush with everything. So next, you know, the $51 million lawsuit. Okay. Birdman said, and I feel like, you know, I'm separating the slick talk from the real talk. So like I said, I'm just getting to the points. Y'all just keep up with me. Because if you watch the interview, he did a lot of slick talking. And so all I really did was go in and watch the interview and separate the slick talk, focus on the real talk, and then just bring y'all the real talk. And we're just going to bypass all the slick talk. Y'all still with me? All right. So the $51 million lawsuit. Birdman said he got Wayne a $100 million contract. Don't necessarily remember for how many albums. That's my fault. I should have paid more attention to how many albums. But focusing in on the money is probably why I didn't pay attention to how many albums. But I want to say it was like 6 or something. I'm sure he might not be counting these mixtapes. Otherwise, he would have been done a long time ago. He said he gave Wayne approximately $67 million to $70 million up front. Now, if this is true, do your math here, people. If this is true and he did give Wayne the $70 million advance, which, by the way, I hope you understand, most artists are lucky if they get, a couple $1,000,000, in advance, let alone 67 to approximately 70 million. Now, if he did give Wayne 70 million, he wouldn't owe Wayne nothing but $30 more million. Which is why it made sense in the interview when Birdman said, I don't feel like I owe him $51 million. Because when he said that, I had to back up from him. I was like, what you mean you don't feel like you owe Wayne $50 million? But then he got on, he said, look, I get, he got this $100 million contract. I gave Wayne approximately $70 million. And if you do the math, he shouldn't owe him no more than $30 million. So Wayne, allegedly, Birdman is saying this is what Wayne attorney is making him feel like he should get, is $51 million. In reality, that lawsuit should only be for $30 million. So I do feel that there was a lot of truth to that, because I've been in the legal system myself a couple times, not proud of it, not bragging. Lawyers can make you believe some shit. I'll tell you that much. Anybody's been out there in that legal system, lawyers will really try to get you to believe some shit. But simple math, he feels he only owes Wayne $30 million, which makes sense because if he gave him $70 million, $30 million is all he would owe him. There was some he was being very evasive with most of the questions. So I'm just going, going straight and give you, try to give you the straight answer, the few straight answers that he did give. Moving on to the next topic, because, I'm trying to, just get through these topics. Wayne's tour bus getting shot up. He said he didn't directly have nothing to do with it, but he got very evasive when it came to the conspiracy of it. So I feel he knows the conspiracy of it, but on some street nigga shit, he probably ain't gonna, Birdman's not the type to probably really put it on Twitter. As far as something like to that degree. So she really couldn't get that out of him. And, she tried, each question, she badgered him for like 10 minutes. She couldn't get it out of him. But he did say he didn't have nothing to do with it. He had nothing to do with it personally. But he would not really speak on the conspiracy of it. So I do feel he knows way more than what he's given. But on some street nigga shit, I don't think he's really going to ever, give the answer on the conspiracy of how it all came about. Young Thug wanting to call his album The Carter 6. He said that it was done more out of respect and an admiration of Wayne. And, so I had to sit back and think about it. I've never really seen Young Thug just straight up diss Wayne, especially not to this Meek Mill Drake thing that's going on. Never to that degree, but so, it got me to wondering. I thought about something. I was like, didn't Wayne do the same thing to Juvenile? Are we forgetting that? That Wayne did that to Juvenile? Juvenile had that album that I was believe called 400 Degrees, and Wayne came out with 500 Degrees. So Wayne, I just felt that was karma. To me, that's all I got. I was like, that's karma. You did it to Juvenile, and now somebody's doing it to you. But he said it was all out of love and respect and admiration of Wayne that he wanted to do it as Carter 6. Moving on. Let me see. Because this interview was like over an hour long, so I'm just trying to get through these topics. Now, as far as the alleged Nicki and Drake leaving Cash Money, Young Money, when Wayne leaves. Make a long story short, said it's not going to happen. So I'm sure he got that contract locked up pretty tight. And if you notice, you've never really heard Nicki or Drake complain about Cash Money or Young Money. And then, it got me to thinking, if he is really screwing all these people over, how is he still getting new talent? So I feel it's just a communication problem, especially some of these people really haven't never really dealt with this degree of business. Because I don't really think he's out here TLCing people. I really don't think he's just out there straight TLCing people. And for that term, I mean, they ain't out here riding around in RAV4s, So I just believe it's a communication error on that issue, and that's because I've sat down and I've talked with people who know Bun B and Trader Truth and people who know people, and they talk to me on some business shit, how business, how it works in the business. It has a lot to do with communication and a lot to do with understanding. So I think that as far as all this money goes, I think it's just misunderstanding and miscommunication of these contracts, and these rappers are getting too excited and, not really paying attention to what's really going on here. Because he did admit that he has probably about 20 lawsuits, throughout his whole career. But yet people keep lining up to work with him. Now, you can say they're coming to work with Wayne, but if you work with Wayne, you're going to have to deal with Birdman, and they're still coming regardless. So I feel it's just a communication error. And she asked him, did he make any mistakes along the way? Had he ever just straight up screwed anybody? And he said no. For some reason, I believe him. For some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, I believe him because, and I think the reason is, she kept at, she asked him about the whole money situation. And asking him about the whole money situation, he brought up something that nobody's really thought about. Y'all excuse me for a second. Hold on. She asked him about something that I never really seen nobody bring up. He says, if I was screwing people over financially, would Nicki be on the Forbes list? Because Nicki is signed to Cash Money. Drake is signed to Young Money. There is a difference. And it's all one and the same, but at the same time, paperwork-wise, there's a difference when it comes to that paperwork and them contracts. And you never really heard her complain about her financial situation. Drake is also on the Forbes list. Do not ask me to ask you where, because that wasn't really the point. So I didn't look up where they were at on the Forbes list, but I do know I've seen them on the Forbes list before. And then Wayne is also on the Forbes list. So these artists are getting paid. You don't get to the Forbes list without getting paid. Speaking of Tiger, they brought up Tiger. Tiger to me just ain't looking at the numbers compared to what other artists sales, he ain't bringing the sales that Nicki, Drake, and Wayne are bringing in. But he still seems to have money, and I don't think he was being completely honest. And I'm speaking on Tiger not being completely honest when he said he didn't get no money whatsoever. Because the money ain't just coming out of thin air. And you don't seem to be fighting for scraps out here. I'm just thinking he probably didn't get as much money as he wanted. But, there's definitely so much to it that I probably have to do 3 or 4 interviews to it. And I'm not going to do 3 or 4 interviews on this one particular topic. But I think it's all a communication error. I don't think the conspiracy is as deep as we're making it out to be. However, I do think there is, some conspiracies here and there that she could just not press out of. But, overall, it was a good interview. He didn't really give no straight, direct answers to too many of the questions. But will I think Wayne leave Cash Money? I was thinking about this as I was listening to the interview. If Wayne were to leave Cash Money, I think he would do like Juvenile. That's what I think. I think if he would have ever